In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the cow catcher for the train car project in Inventor. If you remember in the physical property analysis assignment, we used a command called loft in Inventor, which allowed us to connect a larger piece to a smaller piece that were on two different planes. So we're going to be doing something similar here, where we have this base trapezoid of our cow catcher that has a base length of 1.8. It has this little piece height of 0.25 inches, and then the center or the point of the cow catcher is 0.9 inches, so just equidistant from side to side. And the top piece is a little bit smaller. It's 1.2 inches from the bottom, shares that same height, but the overall height here is 0.75, and it's also equally positioned from the bottom trapezoid here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to Inventor and start a new 2D sketch on the XZ plane. So I'm oriented from the top. And I'm going to start by making the base piece. So I know that the base piece is 1.8. Zoom in a little bit here. I go up 0.25 inches. This is somewhere over here. This goes down over here. This goes down again. Now I know that this is 0.25 inches. And from here to here is 0.9 inches. And I know that my overall height here is 1 inch. Now something kind of weird happened over here. So let me redimension that. There we go. That's what we want. Now let's just go ahead and add in this piece down here again, 1.8, and that should be good to go. We don't need to add in this 0.9. It'll say it's over dimensioned because we already have this 1.8 down here. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to finish a sketch, and we know that the smaller trapezoid actually goes directly on top of it. And it's offset from that plane 0.75 inches. So the trickiest part about making this piece is making sure you're looking at all of your drawings to gather the information that you need. So I am going to go up here to my plane and go to offset from plane. And notice if you hover over in your viewport, nothing is happening. So we actually have to go over to our browser and select our origin and indicate which plane we want to offset it from. Now it makes more sense in this case to offset it from the XZ plane because we want it directly above it. So we're going to say 0.75 inches, and let's make a new sketch on this plane. Perfect. So what I can do from here is I can start sketching out my smaller trapezoid. All right. So now I can go to dimension or press D on my keyboard. And this bottom piece is 1.2. This is 0.25. This is 0.25. The overall height of this object is 0.75. And then from here to the center, that is 0.6. And that's looking pretty good. Now, a couple things happened as I was making this. If you see, it offset itself a little bit from the back of my larger trapezoid. That's not something we want to do. And also, it's not perfectly centered. So let's deal with both of those things. In both cases, we need to dimension it to this bottom sketch. But if you try to click here and dimension it to something below it, it's not going to work. So we have to go up here to project geometry and click on this vertical line, which is the 0.25 inch line from my larger trapezoid, and the back piece for my larger trapezoid. And when we go to dimension, I can click on my small trapezoid and my large trapezoid, and those really, really tiny 0.005 inches, we want to force that dimension to 0 so they're aligned. And then I want to center it. So this is really easy. I have 1.8 inches for my large one and 1.2 inches for the smaller one. The difference in those dimensions is 0.6. So I know that it has to be 0.3 inches on either side. So I can go ahead and just type in 0.3 and we're good to go. So this is all looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and right click and finish my sketch. And let's use loft. So under my create tab, I have my loft function. It's a two-step process. So I'm going to click to add my first section, which is my base, and it selects that profile for me. And then I'll go back here to the loft command and click to add my second section, which is my smaller trapezoid. And you'll see that it'll turn green, which means the two parts are joined, which is good. Now you want to get rid of this plane. So we're going to right click on the plane and uncheck visibility, and we can go on to the next part. So as you're looking at your piece, you're going to see that we have these front two windows that are extruded. Now we're not given that information of how much it's extruded back, but we are given the offset. And we know that this square here is, this polygon is 0.10 inches from the border here. And that's typical, so it means it can be assumed for each side. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a new 2D sketch on this plane. And we're going to go back and use that project geometry tool again. And if you just hover over the center, it'll take those lines right where you need it, which is great. And we'll go over here and use offset. Select this border. And so we want to offset it 0.1 inches. We'll right click and finish the sketch. We will extrude it. And we want to make sure we cut that extrusion, but we also need to figure out how much. So going back to my sketch, we can actually find that information right here. And it's showing us that extrusion goes back 0.05 inches. So back in Inventor, we'll type in 0.05, press enter. And let's do the same thing on the other side. So start 2D sketch. And the reason why we're using offset and project geometry is so that you're not sitting here trying to draw out these individual lines and dimensioning it. It's just a much faster workflow. So project geometry here, offset again, 0.1. Finish your sketch, extrude this, make sure it's cut, and that looks pretty good. Now, one of the last major things you have to do before you add the pegs on the back is make sure that the bottom of it is hollow, as we can see here in the auxiliary view. So that's called a shell, and you can actually see that dimension right here. That shell amount is 0.10 inches. So let's turn this upside down, and let's go to shell, which is over here in your modify tab. Let's make sure we have our shell amount put in as 1.0 inches. We'll click on the bottom and say OK. Now something happened here as I made the shell. You're going to see that it's actually a little bit uneven, which is incorrect if you're looking at this. All of my edges here are equidistant. So what that means is that I have to actually do the shell before I do those two extrusions on the front face. Now you don't need to go back and redo everything. All you have to do is in your browser, click on shell and drag it above your two extrusions, and you'll see that it centers itself. So from here, the back pegs are pretty easy to do. All you need to do is start a new 2D sketch on the back surface and start extruding out your circles to make them small cylinders. And I will demonstrate that in the next tutorial.